Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
What? Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron, right here, everyone. Thanks for joining me and welcome back to the channel. I don't normally talk about my own story growing up in Scientology and leaving Scientology on my channel, but I do on occasion talk about that story on other people's channel, and that's exactly what I did last week with Jon Atack. Jon Atack's channel is called simply Jon Atack Family and Friends. Jon is a former Scientologist who's been exposing Scientology fraud and abuse for close to 40 years now. In fact, Jon wrote one of the most important books on the history of L. Ron Hubbard, the history of Scientology. It's called Let's Sell These People a Piece of Blue Sky. If you haven't read that book yet, I highly suggest adding it to your reading list. Jon published our interview to his Patreon last week. The interview is actually 1 hour long. He published the interview to his public channel on Saturday. I'm going to post a link to his Patreon in the description down below in case you'd like to support his work that way. I'm going to publish here a clip from the interview. To watch the whole thing, again, just go over to his channel, Jon Atack Family and Friends. He publishes some fantastic interviews. All right, here's the clip. Hope you enjoy it. As you know, Scientology isn't really in the habit of getting rid of people. They will try to keep you and keep you and keep you and keep you until they realize that they can't. And then they say, well, get out of here. We never wanted you anyway, you piece of crap. And so people ask me, well, what made you decide to leave? And you have to go, well, nothing really. I didn't actually want to leave. I wanted to stay even when I no longer believed, because officially leaving Scientology means everyone you've ever known has to sever ties with you. And me no longer believing in Scientology did not mean I wanted that to happen. You know, I was working for a Scientologist. So was my wife. All of our friends were Scientologists. Our kids were going to a Scientology school. Her whole family was Scientologists, brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, all that kind of stuff. Like, there was no part of my losing my belief in Scientology that made me go, oh yeah, I don't want to associate with anyone I've ever known my whole life. So
that is a truly terrible thing, that the idea that your network of friends and relatives is now forbidden to you. That, of course, you know, I still miss people who've not been allowed to talk to me since 1983. You know, but there's still people that I'm fond of and would like to see again. So friendship doesn't end with a change in belief. Though, of course, if you're a Scientologist, it does, because it's not real friendship.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why I was, in some respects, fighting so hard to stay in, even though I didn't give a damn about Scientology anymore. And I didn't give a damn if my friends still believed in Scientology. It makes no difference to me. It's really Scientology who creates the framework of rules that brings these sort of conflicts into being, where people have to make ridiculous choices. And, you know, even before I was in my personal conflict of, are they going to kick me out? Are they not? Am I going to, you know, bend the knee? Am I not? There was an earlier similar incident.
Beginning
when
tell me when
after they had declared my mom, because she got declared for basically spreading around, basically talking poorly of David Miscavige. And there was the point of, were they going to insist that I disconnect from her or not? And I was making the argument for, you know, you really should let me just do the good roads, good weather stuff here. And I was even like, and you know, if that means I'm not eligible for any training or courses, by golly, that's okay with me. Let's just, I don't care if you put a big fat, you know, PTS type whatever label on me. But, you know, if you could just really not demand that I disconnect from my mother or else, that sure would make existence easier for her, easier for me. And let me tell you something, easier for you, I promise.
Yeah, and they should have listened, let's face it.
They should have listened. It is one of the reasons I take a certain amount of glee in the work I do to shine a light on Scientology, is because in the back of my head, I'm thinking to myself, You guys could have avoided all of this. You know that, right? You know, I gave you like 10 opportunities to make this easier on all of us, including yourselves. Now, in retrospect, I mean, thank God they kicked me out. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am in life now if that hadn't occurred. And and I can't say that if I was back in that time, in that headspace, that I would actually want it to occur again, because it was all quite devastating. But things have turned out for the best. It's fantastic not to live being spied on by your friends, your employees, your coworkers, your employers. It's amazing that you get accustomed to that kind of stuff. Yeah. That it just becomes normal, that everyone in your life is spying on you for this entity. It's wild stuff.
And what did you what made you active publicly against Scientology?
What do you mean?
Well, why did you choose to speak out? Why did you think? Because you knew the risks, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, I didn't take any of those risks until after I'd been like expelled. Is that what you mean? Or is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's just that many people, even if they're expelled, declared suppressive, will simply walk away, turn their back.
Oh, yeah, that's not in my nature.
Mine neither.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's probably just the best answer I can give. That is nowhere in my nature. What I'm trying to remember is, what's the first thing I did that could even be considered speaking out? So what's interesting is that even that wasn't something I set out to do, if I'm recalling it accurately. And here's what I'm remembering. So, just before I got officially declared, which occurred in 2014, just before that, in late 2013, the guy that I was working for was a very prominent Scientologist named Kurt Feshbach. Yeah. And I was working for him in the hedge fund investment research field. And Scientology, he's a very, very important, he's a VIP in Scientology. They didn't want to put him in a legal dilemma by declaring me while I still worked for him. So they gave him the heads up. And even though I'd been working for him for 5 years, and the goal was for me to eventually take over for him, all of a sudden there were all these very important issues that needed to be addressed. Aaron was being too mean to the people who worked under him. Aaron, this, that. And then I got laid off, and I actually recorded this meeting. I still have a recording of this meeting where they laid out this whole, explanation for why we were going in this direction. And at the end of that meeting, I said, you guys know that I know everything you just said is total horseshit, right? I mean, you guys know that I know that Scientology's been in touch with you and has given you this opportunity to get rid of me so that I can't sue you for religious discrimination. Like, you understand that, right? And they're like, oh my God, how dare you? How could you think that of us? I was like, okay, fine. So he let me go. I was immediately forced, but helped by others, to go into business for myself in the exact same industry, doing hedge fund research. And I had some projects early on that were a bit high profile and got a little bit of exposure, and something was written about it in Forbes magazine. And there was a mention, they asked me about Scientology. And I said something about declining to talk about it. Now, behind the scenes, I told the journalist, Nathan Vardy, I said, oh God, I can't publicly comment on Scientology. I said, I've already been declared, but my wife hasn't. And we're trying to navigate this process so that she doesn't have to lose her family. And if you publish something, it's gonna screw everything up. So please don't get into the Scientology stuff. And he was like, oh my God. He's like, okay, I'll just put like decline to discuss it or something. Somebody sent this article to Tony Ortega, and Tony put up a blog piece basically trying to blow me out of the water. Like, oh my God, look at the Scientology connection here in Wall Street. And so I emailed Tony behind the scenes, and I'm like, hey, dude, I'm the one that's been emailing you for like months and months and months, giving you all the secret information. And he's like, oh, you should speak out publicly. You should speak out publicly. Now, as I sit here now, I do not remember if I then did some sort of a follow-up post with Tony or not. But that's how it started. Like, I had no intention of being surprised. Here I am. because my wife was still going through absolute hell. You know, I mean, even after, like, she was still holding on to the idea that she was going to be able to keep this connection with her family.
Yeah.
And even after she officially got declared, she was still holding on to this belief that there was something that she was going to be able to do to salvage this relationship with her family.
Mm.
So I wasn't just in the background going, hey, good luck with that. While you're worrying about that, I'm going to be over here making sure that never happens.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, oh, Nancy, my love, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.